Hold on a sec. Okay, and as promised, here I am. You know, the funny thing is the old sign said 13 point something. The new sign says 12. So that's good. The distance is actually shrunk by a mile. So, here I am on section 7. This is going to be the longest, hardest climb so far on the trail, 3,600 feet, 12.6 miles. This one's going to be a toughie. And the part that I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around is I got to climb over those mountains in the distance. Wait, let's zoom in. Oh, let's zoom in some more. Yeah, I got to climb over those things back down the other side, in which case I'll end up at Copper Mountain. All right, the mountain to the left is Mount Guyot. I passed that on section 6, in which case I came down that hillside. It's all full of switchbacks. There's the highway that takes you down the valley. And what do you know, there's Lake Dillon in the distance over there. So this is the first break of section 7. And you should see that I'm less aggravated on this section of the hike than I was on the last one, because I only spent 4 days, only 4 days off the trail. I got off at last Thursday about 2 o'clock, and I'm back on the trail on Tuesday about 2 o'clock also. So today is my easy day. I'm just trying to eat up some of this 3,600 feet that I've got to hike this afternoon before setting up camp. Tomorrow will be the big day because I have to go all the way up to 12,600 feet. So, but the view should be spectacular. Now, the question about only taking 4 days off is, have I recuperated enough not to accrete injuries or gather wear and tear? And if not, hopefully I can get back on the trail with shorter rest than the ones that I've been doing. I do have a thing, bottom of my foot has been achy since I got off the trail, and that's a little weird because that's not one of the typical things that bugs me. I know the things that get me, and it's like the left hamstring, the left ankle is cranky, the right hip is cranky, abdominal things start to get cranky from the waist strap across them. I don't like new things. The old things, I kind of know how to deal with them. New things are kind of like, ooh, are you just taunting me and you're going to go away? Or are you going to be the next happy bunny to join the permanent collection of crap that's wrong with me? So we'll find out by the end of the trip whether or not I did give myself enough recuperation time with just 4 days. Well, about 10:05 so far. Get a really spectacular view in the background. There's Grays and Torreys, Mount Guyot. It's kind of spectacular. And I still have over half a mile of altitude to add to what I've got already. I've got to hike over that ridge. And of course, now that I've gotten this high, in the impish humor that trail builders like to inflict upon us all, I have to hike down there before going back up there. Contour lines. Let's use them, guys. This just seems amazing. I'm sure this is going to be great, but I got to go over the other side of those mountains. So here I am on break number 3 of this first half day. I was going to only go 3 miles, but part of me wants to go a little bit farther because it's somewhat demoralizing to hike all the way up here and then get to this downward bit. I want to get to the back upwards bit, and then I can say like, okay, all continuous climb tomorrow all the way to, you know, 12,600 feet. Now, interesting, behind me is a clear cut area. So I guess somebody logged that. At the beginning, I was going like, well, maybe the beetle kill got in here and destroyed everything, and then they, you know, cut things down. But this was really and truly clear cut. In the distance, still see Breckenridge. Probably can't see it, but on the top of the mountain, I can see the towers for the chairlifts going up to the highest peaks there. So a little bit more resting up for me, down to the second low point. I mean, mind you, I've still climbed well over 1,000 feet, but I just lost about 300 of it. I want to start going back up again. And then I'll say, that's enough for one day. You know, at the start of this section, the sign at the trail said that the section was 12 miles long. The old sign, which I have video of, said it was 13.8. My trail guides say it's 12.6. According to the app, it looks like it's about 14.4. So how far am I actually going to have to hike? Well, from here to the end is the quick answer. You know, the light in this forest is absolutely gorgeous. But what I'm going to tell you about is why I like trail markers. Because I just came down from here, and I got here and I looked at this sign and said, yeah, I was on the Colorado Trail. And then I looked at this sign and it went like, which one's the Colorado Trail? I'm going, I hope it's this way. And then I go over here and I go like, oh, Continental Divide Trail, Colorado Trail, which means I'm going the right way. All right, start hiking. So when you're setting up your tent, it's best to take a look at the ground. I can see that water ran down here. I can see that water ran down here. So where's the best place to put my tent? Right between these two, because I don't want to get soggy if it rains. Hey, look, it's morning. Or as I like to put it, a beautiful time to feel awful. Well, let's see, this is what I want to explain. If you have my situation, this restrictive airway thing, well, just think of everything you do in the day. Some of those things take energy from you, cause wear and tear, run down your resources, and make you tired. Other things are restorative and restful. And the major source of rest, of course, for a normal person is sleep. It's a time to recuperate. On an average day for me, the most exhausting thing I do is sleep. Because, you know, I'm working to breathe, and then you know, the emotional state that happens during your dreams gets messed up. So what I got to do is look for those periods of rest in the day. And of course, that rest in the day is never going to be as effective as actual sleep goes. But, you know, sleep doesn't work for me. And at one point I went like, I'm just going to stop sleeping because this is worthless. That, of course, doesn't work. If you don't sleep, you die. And you actually die fairly quickly. There's a glitch that can happen in your brain where it's just physically impossible for you to sleep, and people die in 10 days, a couple of weeks. I mean, it doesn't take long. It takes you out. So, you know, I think the thing why, you know, I like the hiking is like, for once I'm doing something that's more tiring than sleeping. Yesterday, I didn't hike that far, 4 miles, but, you know, it was over 1,000 feet of altitude. And the end of the day, you just like clunk, you know, fall asleep. But of course, then I go into sleep that's not restive, and then drain more from my resources. So Then we have today, and I'm really excited about getting up into the high country and doing this pass, but I'll get really, really tired, not only because of the 2,600 feet of altitude I have to do in one day, but also 12,000 feet. The air's going to be thin. Whole metabolism is going to slow down because of the lack of oxygen that I'm going to have. And so my little rest breaks are going to be the rest I get. Because then I'll go to sleep and have some more ineffective sleep. So I don't know, I've talked about this a lot during this because this is the background or the base state that my life revolves around. So I thought at some point I'd go like, okay, here it is morning. And there is this dichotomy between being excited for the hike I'm going to do today and then waking up and just kind of like, ugh, if only I got some rest, life would be so much easier. I'd just love to be a normal person. I don't want to wake up and feel great. What I'd love to do is wake up and feel neutral. Blank canvas, blank sheet of paper. And if it's a good day, I could write on that blank piece of paper happy things and great things. And if it's a terrible day, I could write on that blank piece of paper, terrible things and how things went wrong. But it would be a choice dependent on the day. It wouldn't be a base state where you just go like, okay, another day to take advantage of while having a base state of feeling terrible. It's just my reality. So, I don't know. Let's go out there. I mean, I will feel tired all day long, but the world is still a beautiful place to be. Another thing mornings are about is getting rid of condensation. The moisture that wants to escape out of the ground into the atmosphere is blocked by your tent, which gets a little soggy on the bottom. The drop cloth that you put underneath your tent to keep it from wearing. Your pad that you slept on last night. The sleeping bag that you slept in with all your body respirating, its moisture exuding from it. And then this horrible thing that I stick in my mouth to try and keep my tongue forward from screwing up my breathing. That thing's got to be rinsed off. Then there's this pile of junk that you carry with you. All the important things, food and spare clothes, the pack itself, and the ukulele, which I like to think of as just a mini 4-string classical guitar. And this device in my hand that keeps my little app, shows me where I'm at, keeps me amused at night because I can watch movies in my tent as I'm sitting there half dead from the day's hike. So that's how the day begins. Probably somewhere in there I should have breakfast. That'd be a good idea. I'd like the sun to get a little higher and it's like do that whole heat thing, because it's late enough in the season and I'm high enough in altitude that it's a bit chilly this morning. When you see an area like this with a bunch of dead trees or cleared areas, you got to pause for a moment and go like, okay, was it clear cut like that last section I pointed out? Did the beetles get them? Because the beetles have been going absolutely crazy. Which at first I thought, I'm in one of those beetle kill areas, but now that I look closer and see the charring on the trunks, there was a fire here. And this is the effects of a forest fire. Once again, those happy people say like, oh, forest fire and it all comes back, the next spring. It's like, no, these trees are coming back. They're all over the place. They're going like, wow, sunlight. It's my big opportunity. But how many years will it take for that tree right there to be as tall as these trees once were? Okay, across this little valley is the grassy hill. That was my high point yesterday. I had to down climb into the creek bed and then back up here. So I finally regained that altitude that I climbed yesterday. And now it's on my way to 12,600 feet. Well, I just showed you where I came from. That's where I'm going. Over those mountains. Holy smoke! All right, let's get on with it. So my trail book was The Hobbit, which I finished reading a bit ago, and so I have a new trail book, The Art of War, Sun Tzu. I was a little reluctant to start reading this book, to tell the truth, because after all, it's about how to wage war, and it's like, well, how about doing something constructive instead, like, I don't know, food, raising children, making a functional society. But I had a couple of thoughts. One was, if it's important enough work that British author Terry Pratchett made fun of it, maybe it's important enough for me to read. And while there's absolutely no point of me having the information in this book in my head, I think it is important to know what people who make the decision to make wars might have in their head, given that this is, after all, a classic bit of literature from the way back when. But as I read it, it became increasingly obvious that nobody who's propagated these wars in my lifetime, things like the Vietnam War, Iraq, the Second Iraq War, just when you thought it was safe to blow off the Americans, they're back. And then, we got what's ever going on in Ukraine and this disaster in Gaza. None of these people have read this book, because the point that keeps on getting made in this book is that you wage war to take over a culture or group of people so that you can rule over them. If they're all dead, if their houses are burnt to the ground, if the fields are barren and there's no food, no supply chain of any sort, then what's the point? Now you're ruling over a bunch of dead people in a disaster zone. And kind of getting the character, like he even goes as far as saying that generals, which is the word he used for people who, instigate and oversee wars, that if you do that, if you go and kill everybody and then, burn the place to the ground, that you're an amateur and a douchebag and you screwed up. Because what the point is there to saying, like, I've expanded the empire. It's like, to where? Oh, that smoking rubble over there with all the dead people. What the hell's the point? So, I'm maybe a third of the way into this. Maybe I'll update you as I go along, but think of what we did in Vietnam. Just bombed the crap out of the place, eventually slunk out of there when it turned into a disaster. Iraq, we killed a whole bunch of people. And, Halliburton, of course, was very, happy to put a pipeline through that area. But, once the intellectual powerhouse of the world, Baghdad, it just turned into a smoking rubble, and the place is a disaster. So, according to this guy, those guys are amateur douchebags. I think I've run out of things to say about this kind of tricky subject that is a minefield in and of itself. So, talk about slinking off. Now I'm going to slink off myself and continue my rest break. One of the things that I don't understand about the human body, and I guess mine in particular, is you get those naggy little pains, which are common in the course of any physical activity. And how do you know the difference between one that's going to just go away in a few minutes and be a non-issue, and one that's going to stick around for decades and decades, and you're going to have to deal with it, maybe even the rest of your life? And even weirder is like, for instance, when I started the trail on only 4 days rest, I was kind of knackered. In particular, my right foot was giving me grief. Just felt squashed, from all the activity. And I got on the trail and I went, maybe I didn't give myself enough time because it still felt squashed. And yet, lo and behold, as I hike along, not only has it not gotten worse or even stayed the same, it's actually gotten better. How the hell am I supposed to know that that was the case? Because so many times you have something and you go like, oh, that's no big deal. I'll just ignore that. I don't want to be a big whiner about every single ache and pain that comes up. And then you get something that just lasts and lasts and lasts. For instance, this stupid elbow started whining on the order of like 3 months ago. And at the time that I had it, I went like, oh, okay, just got to give it a little rest. It will be fine. And it just went on and on and on. Months went by. Same thing with this thing that goes on in my right ankle. When I did that, which is about 6-7 years ago, I thought, a little tweak, like happens to all of us. Yeah, stay off it a little bit, and it will go away. Now, it keeps on coming back, keeps on being a pain in the butt. So, what's the difference? I also find that with my colds and sniffles that I have, and with no deep sleep or the recuperation that it brings, I tend to have colds forever and ever and ever, like I've said. Sometimes I go like, damn it, I'm just sick of this crap, I'm going to go out and do something. And it's a huge mistake, because I make myself way sicker, and then it sticks around forever. And other times, I do what appears to be the exact same thing, and the exercise, actually makes me better. The cold goes away. It's like, well, so we just, throw the little ball into the roulette wheel and go like, well, maybe I go for a little hike even though I'm sniffly and worn out. Maybe I'm sick then for the next couple of months, or maybe it gets better. How am I supposed to know the difference between that? So, although I'm glad that my right foot, with its little achy bitchy thing that it was doing, has sodded off and actually gotten better, it's like, can you just tell me what the difference is between something I can ignore and something I can't? And I guess my default position is to pay a lot of attention to everything, because you never know what's one of these things is going to go for a mega weeks, or just join the permanent collection. Decades, the rest of your life you'll be dealing with it. I don't know. I'd like to know how that works. We're in the high country now. What a view. And, I only got 1,400 feet more altitude to climb today. Holy moly. Well, there's Lake Dillon way down below. That's where I was kayaking earlier this summer. Up that way. Ooh, somewhere over there. It's Arapahoe Basin, where I spent most of the winter skiing. This is the land of the pika. I've seen two. Oh, there's one over there. Whether or not you saw it, it's hard to say. But they live down amongst these rocks. And they come out and collect grass. There goes one right there. We'll have to see if you actually saw that, but went right through the middle of the screen and towards the path. They collect grass in this very short summer that you have way up here at 11,000 feet. They store it away underneath their little dens. And then the trick of their survival is it has to snow hard. Oh, there's a pika on the path. Let's see, are you gonna keep moving? There, it ran across the field again. There he is. He's got a mouthful of grass and he's taking it, putting away in his den. So the grass feeds them through the winter, the dried grass that they put in their dens, but the snow has to cover their dens for insulation. And pika population's gotten hit really bad by a few, like, not very good snow years, because then the wind blows through these rocks and they all freeze to death. So not only do we want a lot of snow so we can screw off and go skiing, but we want to save the pika. So let's have a really good snow winter so we can have lots of powder days, and all those little pika will be nice and warm and snug in their little dens under the rocks. All right, so I've still got over, well, actually a little less than 1,000 feet of altitude to climb. I'm going way the hell up there somewhere. But I thought it was about time to talk about altitude acclimation. So there's roughly like 3 things that goes on. One is that the little air sacs in the bottom of your lungs, where the oxygen is actually transferred into the bloodstream, those expand so that there's more surface area, so that more air gets into you. That happens relatively quickly, maybe 3 days. The next level is increased red blood cell count. That takes about 6 weeks. And the long-term stuff is cardiovascular fitness. That might take 9 months to even a year. Now I would say that I'm pretty solidly acclimated to, just under 6,000 feet, which is a good start. And I spent a lot of time getting as high as 10,000 feet. Whether I'm going up to the trail, visiting my friend Chris up in Silverthorne, going skiing at Arapahoe Basin. So I keep bouncing up and down. But the funky thing is, your body does not want to keep its acclimation for any time at all. So you drop down in altitude, your body readjusts very, very quickly. So unless I'm spending a lot of time at 10,000 feet, I'm reverting to kind of that base altitude of just under 6. Now, might have put off talking about this a little too late, because now we have a steep part. It'll be nothing but a bunch of gasping. But here's the deal. Being acclimated to Denver, Boulder, Golden, that's still 7,000 feet lower than where I'm going to climb to today. So even though I got some altitude acclimation, I'm not used to this kind of altitude. So hence the panting, and maybe even less ranting. Part of that is being less frustrated because I didn't take one of those damn 3-week breaks, and actually feeling pretty good. Sleep didn't go all that great, but really excited to be up in the high country finally. I love this terrain way the heck up here. So the key for me is I'm going to take my feet. Oh, let's take a look. Here's my shadow. There's some feet. But the heel of my foot at the toe of the other foot. And you just go really slow. Because you can't max out your heart rate until you have to pant. Because there's not enough oxygen up here to have that kind of abusive cycle of, hike till failure. So I just got to go really, really slow. If you're 64 years old and you find yourself in a place like this, you gotta spend a moment and just suck it all up. Because, I'm past the point where there's any illusion that life has guarantees. And who knows what's going to happen? Will I keep chugging along for maybe another 10 years of adventures? Or is it the last time I'll be in a place like this? That becomes a stronger possibility the older you get. I hope not, but In case it is, I'm going to take a moment and really and truly be here. There's the last big view of Lake Dillon back to Frisco. You see that road on the right side of the reservoir. There's an open grassy spot. That's where the paragliders launch. Might be able to see them if they start flying. I'm notorious for playing the what's around the corner game. And since my last rest break, it's supposed to be 1.1 mile to the high point when I finally crossed the ridge. And yet, every corner in this trail that I get to, there's yet more climbing. But I think it's soon to be over, because if you look off to the left there, that's got to be the top of the ridge. And all I have to do is have enough lung power. Actually, it's not my problem. Pretty good with lungs. It's my heart that starts really beating when I get up in this altitude. Okay. Could this finally be it? The high point of the trail that was supposedly 1.1 miles away. Each little corner that I go over, I go like, nope, it's still not there. Did the trail designer have this sense of suspense? No, but look, the trail goes even higher. Okay, could that finally be it? The high point of the trail? Because when I get there, I'll be able to look all the way to the west, down to Copper Mountain. But I've already thought I'm going to be there twice already. It's got to be close. If we look down here, this is the west side of the 10-mile range. When, oh when, should I just keep filming and see if we get over the edge? Wait a minute. Wait, I think I see all the way down to that huge mine over there. Yeah, there's the other side. Can I see down to the valley yet? Not quite, but I think, yep, this has got to be it. Right here, on the order of 12,600 feet. And thank goodness for me, it's going to be all downhill until I get down to the bottom of the valley by Copper Mountain, start looking for that big white pickup truck. And there's been a promise that on the way back, there's going to be Bo Joe's Pizza, which is going to make a life worth living. Anyway, it's a hell of a achievement. Get up this high to come this far. And I am knackered. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is the first flat spot I find, I'm going to put up my tent and call it quits for the day. Well, if you can hear me over the wind noise, there we go. That's I-70 going up to Vail Pass. This is all Copper Mountain, where I've skied many a times. And holy smoke, I have to walk across, for the next section, across Copper Mountain, up into these mountains over there somewhere. It's over 4,000 feet of climbing. Unbelievable. The next section has even more climbing than this one. Well, there's camp, all splayed out all over the place. I'm ready to start packing it away. I have this place to myself, as it would take anybody hours to climb up from Copper Mountain and 3 times that amount to hike up from the other side over there at Breckenridge. I've got some signs over here that tell me not to fall off the cliff. Those are from the skiers, because if you look over here very closely, you can see the top of a chairlift. This is the top of one of the ski runs right here. And it's a big, beautiful view. A lot of mare's tails in the sky today. Very different from yesterday, which was all convective clouds. It's strange to be in a place like this where the clouds are that close. You know, even the Midwest, they'd be at 3,000 to 6,000 feet. Now they're only a couple thousand feet over my head, because I'm at about, well, there's the high point of the trail is right about there, which was like 12,600, only maybe 150 feet lower than that. There we go. So I'm just taking a little moment to soak up the train. You can do that with me, all my viewers. And then it's time to put all this stuff in the bags, in their various bags, and start hiking down the trail. I didn't eat breakfast, dinner. Air's thin, brain's dead. I didn't eat dinner last night because, to tell the truth, eating at over 12,000 feet, you don't have a lot of blood to digest food. And I was so spent, I just crashed out. And I don't think I'm going to eat breakfast until I get below 11,000 feet. Because not only is it hard to digest, your body kind of knows it and doesn't flick on the I'm hungry switch, because it knows it's going to be a pain to digest food. So that's my story. I'm going to start hiking, have breakfast later. Now if you look over here, it's one of the very few patches of snow left in the mountains. It was a very bleak winter for snow this year. That particular patch is Copper Mountain's half pipe, where the snowboarders do their tricks. It's not the only patch of snow you see. There's just a couple clinging to the mountains over there. Maybe you can just barely see them on those slopes. But otherwise, really thin year for snow. All right, I'm starting down the mountain. It's been a very warm hike. You know, I started in Waterton Canyon at 95 degrees. I was really surprised where I finally got to 10,000 feet in the Lost Park area, that it was still on the order of, you know, high 70s, sometimes low 80s. That's not the case today. It's cold up here, and I'm kind of starting to freeze my nads off. Thinking of actually succumbing to putting on my puffy warm jacket, but I think as I get hiking, I'll warm up. Plus, that gives us an opportunity to talk about standard lapse rate. This is something that paraglider pilots should know, which means, of course, that 98% of them don't. But the warmest air is closest to the ground. That's because the sun heats up not the air but the ground, and then the ground convects heat into the air due to its contact. What the standard lapse rate is how quickly does the air get cooler as you go up. And that tends to be that for every 1,000 feet you go up, the air will get 2 to 3 degrees cooler. Now there's a bunch of exceptions, things like inversions and whatnot, but you know, that's a good rule of thumb to go by. So if I lose 1,000 feet, I should at least get a couple of degrees warmer. And on top of that, this sun will be higher in the sky and start warming things up. So off I go. Oh, when I said it was all downhill, you know, and no trail goes perfectly downhill. I don't want to hike back up that, but it's on the way down, so here we go. Well, here's something worth pointing out. You see this valley here? It's like, what's with all those straight lines and embankments? That's the tailings from a mine. And if you look over about here, you can see there's a mountain that's completely sheared off. It used to be much taller than that. The whole thing has been mined and then thrown down in this little valley, which kind of used to look like this here, but now it's all full of grunk. But it's really amazing the amount of that mountain that just got sheared off, ground up, and then poured back into that valley over there. I'm now back below tree line, descending into the base of the valleys between the mountains. Last night I was physically on top of the world, looking down at everything with only the highest peaks as my peers. Now I'm leaving behind that dreamy world of wide open vistas with an addled mind of oxygen deprivation and exhaustion. To have the opposite effect, where now coming down the trail, everything gets easier, the air gets thicker, the heart beats slower, the lungs fill easier. I also return soon to civilization. Not only these trees, although the first things, but soon the parking lot, the highway, the big white pickup, and pizza. Because getting a little less poetic, my can of DEET opened up and gobbed up all my snacks. So I'm hungry now. So off I go to return from the world of the heights to the world of the valleys, where there's friends and restaurants and cars and beds. All right, I'm getting pretty close to the trailhead. You can see the road down below, and there's Copper Mountain that I was looking down at from the top of the ridge where my camp was. Now it looms over me. Okay, I'm about 1.5 miles from the end of section 7 to where section 8 begins. I gotta say, whatever I've achieved on this trail, it's been because of the strategy of pacing that I've applied to it. Physical ability has been really lacking, although I do have to eat a little bit of Koro. When I said on the last video that I didn't felt like I was gaining any strength, I think I have. This last section was really hard. 3,600 feet up, 3,600 feet back down. And I'm going like, you know, you're better off than you were when you started in Waterton Canyon in section 1. Not tons, mind you, and far below what my initial expectations were. But the thing that has kept me in the game, kept me on the trail, and been able to enjoy, you know, all the wonderful views that I've had and all the incredible places that I've seen is pacing. So if you're in your 50s right now and you're going, you know, when I retire in my 60s, I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. No. If you really want to do it in your 50s. You got so much better of a chance. I'd say 300-400% more likely that you're going to pull off whatever the heck it is that you want to pull off. Because aging is not a linear thing. You don't start here and then decline like this. You decline like this. Clunk, clunk, clunk. And you don't know when those clunks are going to hit you. And then all of a sudden you're going to go like, wow, that's gone. That's over. That's a thing that I can no longer do. I was just reading a Facebook post from a friend talking about the things that are no longer available to him to do. He's just a couple of years older than me, and time comes. Kind of let loose of those outliers out there who are doing it in their 80s, that one guy, and figure out what you want to do and do it. If you are in your 60s, there's a really good chance you have a big advantage over me. I mean, I'm dealing with this restricted breathing that happens at night that keeps me from entering deep sleep, which compromises my ability to recover and to recuperate. If you don't have that, you're well ahead of the game of me than I have, or my game, or whatever the heck I'm talking about. I'm exhausted at this point. The other huge advantage you could have if you do want to do big adventures in your 60s is if you had a full-time desk job most of your life, you're well ahead of the game. You might go like, wait, aren't I supposed to be out there being active all the time to be the most active when I'm old? It's like, no, the body only takes so much wear and tear. If you burn through tons of that in your youth, it's gone and it won't be there in your 60s. If, however, you had a job which meant at least 40 hours every week you were inactive, you should have a reasonable amount of reserves. And I would encourage people, even if you go like, oh, I'm out of shape, I'm overweight, if you haven't done a lot of damage to yourself, there may be a lot more opportunity in you than you think. However, this whole strategy of pacing will really, really be important to you, because you'll have to build up very, very slowly, because once again, number one thing is exercising in your 60s is do not get injured. The recuperation times are way, way too long. You get injured, you're done. Give it up for that year. Maybe you come back at it. You do that a couple of times, maybe you're done for the rest of your life, and just say, that's no longer an option that I have. So don't get injured. And some of that is letting go of that. I'm going to be tough. I can ignore this. Let's go for this. You just give all that up. And you'll have a chance. And then maybe you can hike out there. But, I was just talking to a gal who's, younger than me. And I was going like, are you going to try and finish the trail this year? And she kind of gets out her phone, does some calculation. Well, it's only another 380 miles. And I got a month, so it should be no problem. That's available to her. That will not be available to you in your 60s. So use your pacing, go slow, change your priorities from miles to time in the woods rather than miles covered. I think that's that. Well, even though I've just done it, it's hard to believe that I've hiked over that ridge. And that isn't even the top of the ridge. Well, I was getting to be Mr. Grumpy here because the end of the trail is way the heck over there. So I'm going, why are they continuing to make me go this way? I'm tired. Then I realized, okay, guess it makes sense. They want me to go over this bridge. So I had to cross the bridge, and then I'll be, I guess, about last half mile to the end of the trail. No, actually it's worse than that. They're detouring me because, I'm not tired. I want to walk another 1.75 miles because what the hell? So I think I just got to remember where I get off the trail, because I'm probably going to go just down to the parking lot down there. And I'll just have to remember when I start up on section 8 that I need to start up at that point for that continuous foot trail. So now about section 8, the question is, am I going to hike that? See, I've had plans all along that sometime in September I'd return to my hometown of Madison, Wisconsin. But there's kind of a looming family crisis on the horizon that might make that earlier than I expected. In which case, when I get back, will it already start to snow? I mean, this is the Colorado high country. There's no reason at all that it couldn't start snowing in September. If I'm lucky, these will be a short snow, and then it will go away. And then I might be able to hike that section, maybe the next one after that. Then I'm going to start running out of time, unless there's a really, really long Indian summer. So we'll see. Now the thing about section 8 is this was hard at 3,600 feet of vertical altitude. This next section's got 4,000, even more, and on top of it, with this one being 12 or 14 or whatever they've come to agree upon, this next one's 25. However, I might have a cheat because there's a road through Camp Hale, which is the old 10th Mountain Division Army base there, where I could get picked up. That'd mean that I'd add another 18 miles, and then my goal of reaching 100 miles this summer would be complete. Now, I don't know what I said in the videos. Did I say I wanted to complete 100 miles of the trail? Because if I just said that, that's already true, because I hiked section 6 years ago. If I said this year, then I still need, well, I'm adding another 3/4 of a mile here. So I need like 18 more miles to hit that goal. So we'll see. Now the goofy part about this all is that I have to get in contact with the big white pickup truck, because now I'm going to some goofy place where the truck is not expecting me. I hope this doesn't delay me getting pizza, because that's what's going to happen when I get off the trail. Anyway, this is the bike path. I've actually biked this on the electric bike. It's pretty fun. Look at there, right over there. It's the big white pickup truck, which means I'm done. It's time to go get pizza.